Welcome back to the Inner Alchemist TV. In today's video, we're going to take a little bit of a detour from our normal Huntsville sector readings. We'll get back to those tomorrow. But I just got off of like a little couple day break, and while I was preparing for Thanksgiving, which I make the sweets because that's what I do. So I've been making like batches of praline candy, and I think I'm going to start my cookies soon. But anyways, that's what I've been up to. And I saw that Todd and Kandi were getting a divorce. And it's funny because I knew I did that reading like 2 years ago. And I posted on a community wall. And I told y'all these cards, they just don't lie, right? So I did want to do an updated reading just to see what was really the crux of the issue, or what is it now? I know what the issues were back then. But as of right now, what kind of sparked that flame to make somebody make the final decision, right? So I decided to go ahead and pull a spread and do a reading on it. So before we get started, please like this video. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel and that you have your notification bells on. And like I said, we'll get right back to our Huntsville readings, unless you guys have other people from different things like the Braxtons or Karen Huger, or just other readings that you are interested in. You can let me know if you're open to that. But YouTube, for some reason, it just will not recommend my content unless I'm talking about Huntsville. So I've tried to talk about different things on this channel, from politics to just reading other scenarios. And for some reason, those videos just don't pick up like the Huntsville videos, right? So I enjoy tarot, but I also want to make the best use of my time, right? So that's where we're at with it, and we're gonna go ahead and jump right into this reading. It's funny, this song just came on insane in the background because the first card for the overall energy of the spread is the Moon card in reverse, which can be about going insane. You know what I mean? But really, I feel like this Moon card is just really giving me like a sense of feeling drained. I believe I'm reading from Kandi's perspective, but of course they may intertwine at one point, and it can always go in either or direction. But I'm seeing that somebody is drained and exhausted, and I feel like they have been trying to hold their thoughts and their imaginations about what's going on, possibly behind their back. There's a lot of secrecy going on. They've been trying not to entertain toxic thoughts or ideas or concepts such as almond chi. Those kind of like things that are passed down from woman to woman. I show that, somebody has been trying to like stay away from that type of thing and really be open-minded, and maybe even positive towards their relationship. But the denial of basic things, like I said, is becoming draining. I also feel like, looking over the whole spread, I feel like there's something illegal taking place in the marriage, whether it's on Todd's part alone or they're both in it together. And from that perspective, I was feeling like, okay, is this divorce or separation a business decision because of something that's going to be coming out, or something that's going to be revealed, having to do with, like I said, something illegal and a fear of consequences. But again, I feel like Kandi may be trying hard not to think of that, not to, get her mind caught up in that, because there seems to be enough people involved in the situation to where it can be like a conspiracy charge. Now, I don't know what the RICO Act is. I don't know if the C in that stands for conspiracy, but the Moon card is about conspiracy sometimes. And listen, whatever's hidden, or like they say, whatever's done in the dark is coming to light. And I'm showing that some things are going to be coming to light regarding some criminal activities. Okay. So like I said, I don't know if the divorce was to protect assets or to separate herself legally, like a Phaedra and Apollo type situation. But like I said, something seems like it's coming up or whatever. I I feel like Kandi doesn't want to be responsible for Todd's acts or vice versa. And like I said, I feel also that she feels maybe there was some intention on his part to do her harm. Now, he may have just been hustling or trying to make a way, or just doing something janky that may or may not have been intended to harm her. But that's not the way she's perceiving it. She's perceiving it as an intention on your character. And I think that may be part of the paranoia or the conspiracy as well. And even going as far as to thinking that he colluded with someone. There is another woman here. But going as far as to thinking he colluded with someone, to, like I said, intentionally do her harm, could possibly have stolen something from her as well. And I say that because we have the Seven of Swords in the spread, we have the Knight of Swords in the spread, and we have the Devil card in the spread. And all of those cards can represent some type of like illicit criminal activity, if you will. So Kandi's confused right now. I don't think she really knows what to think. Like I said, some of the stuff is just now coming to light. Now, I feel like with this Moon card also, there's been some misunderstandings. Maybe Todd tried to explain something having to do with some type of investment, or even if it's like some type of like pyramid scheme or Ponzi scheme. It seems like he tried to explain this to her, but he wasn't really giving her a full understanding. And so again, I feel like this is highlighting that confusion for sure. I also feel like, in addition to some of the lies maybe Todd has been telling, he's also been making a lot of mistakes. And I think these mistakes are what are getting them in trouble. Like I said, with the law, he could be tripping over his feet or moving sloppy. Like I said, just not doing things to protect things, right? I feel like Kandi has closure about the situation. I feel like with the Moon card, there's definitely an emphasis on being emotional about something. You know what I mean? And this is following a bunch of arguments about something, for surely. But I also feel like the decision to divorce or the decision to break off from him brought a certain amount of closure to things from her perspective. Now, whether or not she's off the hook for things that happened, maybe like, I don't know, like if this is something that like Joe and Teresa Giudice did or something like that. And like I said, it kind of looks like she was trying to separate herself from it. I'm not sure. All I know is that it's about to come out. Everything is coming to the surface. And I guess we'll have to stay tuned, right? So the reading is opening up with the Empress card in reverse, and that's clarified by the Knight of Swords. I think that this Empress card in reverse is more of an ode to what was going on in the marriage. For one, this is a cross reference between Kandi and also her mother, in that she tried very hard not to be like her mother, or not to let her mother influence her or this relationship. And she kept her guard up as far as that. However, with this Empress card coming in reverse, this is like saying that Kandi was kind of getting dissociated from her role as a mother. And she became more involved in like women or women's issues, or even, like I say, like becoming brainwashed by a lot of the social media rhetoric that was like slowly maybe turning her into a feminist based on her resonance with the suffering of women. And so she started to leave the traditional motherhood, womanhood, defined roles kind of to the side, whereas before she may have been more willing to at least pretend or try to learn to be submissive. Like I said, somewhere along the way, she started to change her mind and start to go more towards the feminine route. And so she wasn't really there a lot with her kids or for her kids, but instead she had like nannies. And it was kind of like a sense of her maybe like neglecting her children even though a lot of women won't see it that way because they'll say, oh, she was going out to provide. Listen, at some point you're worth $35-40 million. You can't really use the excuse of I had to provide as far as a priority is concerned. You're not a woman that was working at Chick-fil-A and CVS part-time. No, you're set and made. So you have the ability to prioritize what you feel is important, right? Which she probably didn't. So she was separating from her role. Now with the Knight of Swords here in the reverse, this to me shows me that this was maybe a source of their arguments. I'm not going to say that Kandi was like regressing, but it could have been perceived as her like acting like a teenager again or acting like a kid again. I feel like with this Knight of Swords clarifying this Empress in reverse, that's something that Todd was constantly vocalizing. Whether he was being genuine about that or disingenuine about that, he used her involvement with women's groups and social issues and things like that as a point of contention for him to argue about or talk about in the relationship. I show that a lot of his projects he was making, they weren't necessarily being fruitful. And so it put the mind of her that she needed to go out and still work and produce and continue to kind of get the money. And that gave her a source of contentment because the avenues or ventures they took on in his name, they always fizzled out and didn't have like any longevity. You know what I mean? And so that's just what it is. And so with her feeling like, okay, I need to keep myself in the game, it kind of detached her, or she had to detach from like the traditional role of wife and mother. And like I said, he then turned around and used that to argue about or to make some type of point of contention to where there was a lot of conflict. That's what I'm seeing. Just changing roles, you know what I mean? Just changing roles. And then it's like, as a woman, how do you navigate when a man is not producing, but at the same time, I won't say he's intimidated by you producing. He's just really kind of like sticking it to you for going out and doing what he can't do, you know, for whatever reason. Like it may be just women's time right now, and men are not able to get on that fast, right? From Todd's perspective, she just looked like she was just all about herself and just being superficial about what they need, what their needs were, how they spent money. He wasn't going for the, oh, my stuff isn't working out and that's why I have to keep working type of bid. That's not how he saw it. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily know if he saw it as her rejecting her role as wife or mother, or the trad wife or mother thing. I don't think he saw it that way or that flagrant, again, because he was, you know, kind of like arguing a little bit with her over it, or at least using that as an excuse. But in addition, he also had his other things going on. And I think that I really, really, just by the look of it, think that those things had to do with, you know, being sneaky with other women. The Queen of Cups is here in the recent past. That represents an emotional connection to somebody. And then it's near the Ace of Cups, and that can represent to me him falling in love with somebody else, even if it was something that didn't last. You know, because sometimes these men, they go off and they fall head over heels over a woman that they're conversating with, etc. And then it fizzles out in 6 months, and then they want to return to their primary relationship. You know what I mean? But for that time being, whatever it's providing to them is something good. And this person could have been a friend. The Ace of Cups here to me reminds me of friendship. It could have been a publicist with that Page of Wands there, or somebody, like I said, that they're used to talking to or used to dealing with. But again, this to me, this Queen of Cups is looking, it's giving me other woman energy, but it looks like even that situation has maybe fizzled out or ended. Not only is she facing away from the spread, it's also coming in the recent past. Now, we know historically Kandi and Todd have invited other women in their relationship. And with this Devil card here, This could also have been something that happened as a result of a threesome gone wrong, and him continuing with the woman on the side outside of Kandi's knowledge, and that having been something that came up between them in the past. But with the Ace of Cups here, it would say that they had worked to heal past that, and that it wasn't an active issue in their relationship like as of right now. The Knight of Swords is here in reverse. These are hostilities, and this is somebody that's being hella aggressive because they're angry with you. And like I said, him using the fact that she's always gone, always dealing with women's issues, not taking care of the kids, but lashing out at her with a reasonable amount of anger. And it's almost like saying he was becoming aggressive. Now, I won't say like he physically hit her, but with the Devil card here and the Knight of Swords, it's potential that he yanked her up a few times. And maybe that aggression came from drug use. You know what I mean? Like somebody could be sniffing some cocaine or drinking, but it's giving me like a temperamental backlash that nobody expects. And again, it's like him getting into these inebriated states or this kind of flip of the mind frame, and then he attacks her womanhood or her motherhood. You ain't shit as a mother. You ain't never here. You don't take care of these kids. I take care of these kids. You don't raise nobody. You just this. You just that. You just like your mother. Things like that. Saying like super harsh things. And I feel like, maybe he even needed to take a step back himself and try to check himself, you know what I mean, and clear up his own mind, because at the end of the day, the way he was approaching things was having like a negative impact on their relationship as a whole. And like I said, I would go as far as to say he was also involved in some criminal activities, and with that Moon card in reverse coming in as the overall energy, he could also have had paranoia about that. You know what I mean? Where he was waiting for the bottom to fall out, or it could have been like a situation where there's no honor amongst thieves, and the people that he was hustling with or scamming with or scheming with were also stealing from him or taking something from him or running circles around him in some type of way. I show that he uses negativity though as a way to control what's her name? Kandi. You know what I mean? And again, I feel like he does that by coming through her womanhood. It's like, okay, well, I can't attack your success because you pretty much have all your shit together, and I can't attack this or I can't attack that, so I'm going to come for you in this way. On top of the fact that with that Moon card in reverse, Kandi could have some hormonal issues. Like the Moon card represents feminine issues, like things like PCOS or other menstrual things, or what do they call it, like ovarian cysts, like things, or not able to have kids anymore or want to have kids anymore. It could be things like that she has gone through that he has weaponized against her in the heat of the moment. With the Empress card in reverse, again, this is a lack of care though, a lack of care and concern for the things that you're supposed to nurture. You know what I mean? Like the home or like the children, and her just being detached or disassociated from that period. I feel like Kandi was just like, you know what, I'm going to just let him talk until he just runs out of steam. She wasn't really trying to constructively resolve things with him. She was just like taking it like, okay, I'm going to just let you talk. Eventually it'll blow over because you ain't talking about nothing. In her mind, he wasn't talking about nothing. She just did not see it his way. And the way her mind might be set up is that she may have been too stubborn, which in this case would have been protecting her from somebody that's trying to change your mind about yourself. That's when that stubbornness comes in to save you, right? So it could be the way that her personality is set up. All that shit he was talking, I'm rubber, you're glue, it bounces off of me and sticks to you. Facts. She wasn't digesting any of that. But at the same time, the arguments may have intensified, because the more she was unresponsive, he would just get riled up over something, anything. And the most things that he would complain about was things not being fair. And to her, it sounded like nonsense. To her, he was just not being rational or using common sense when it came to things. And again, I don't know if that has to do with some type of drug use with that devil card in reverse. I don't think I've ever perceived that like that, but the devil card can represent addiction, period. And with this Knight of Swords, like I said, this feels to me like some Ike Turner type shit. Like I'm feeling like somebody wiping, to blow off their nose and just talking shit. You know what I mean? I also feel like, I feel like in their relationship, they had a lot of temptations that they gave into together as a couple. And we know that. It was a bit hedonistic, where instead of them having discipline over drugs or the taste for money or the taste for other women, she totally obliged and indulged him. Now with that Queen of Cups being here, it could have been for love, but with the Empress in reverse, it could also be somebody who's giving a man whatever he wants as a source of manipulation. You know what I mean? Like, it's incredibly seductive when a woman says yes to a man all the time. And that power that people derive from that, from knowing that they can get you to do anything or anything goes, that's an incredibly sexy and attractive quality when it comes to certain type of men. You know what I mean? But for the woman, it's giving her an immense amount of control on an emotional level. It's like this thing I say all the time. The submissive holds all the power. So it could be something like that. I feel like also maybe with Todd, I feel like he also was kind of going into like a spiritual side. Now this could be drug induced with this devil card, but with the devil and the Ace of Cups, to me, it's kind of giving me a vibe of maybe somebody trying to turn away from bad habits and trying to start their path towards evolving. And just as you're doing that, a lot of things are starting to catch up to you or fall apart. And trust me, that is exactly some shit that the Holy Spirit will do to you. Because I think the Holy Spirit is asking you, when you commit to change, are you who you say you are? So if you're committed to living a different way and walking a different walk, when a curveball is thrown at you, are you going to resort back to what you were and who you were? Or are you going to stay committed to the new path regardless of what? You know what I mean? I feel like there was a lot of manipulation in their relationship holding them together. And again, I feel like that manipulation comes from indulgence and them trying to become aware of the destructive things that they were doing to each other, and how in their own individual ways they were each abusing their own power. You know what I mean? His power to I don't know, like I said, maybe talk crazy to her or rough her up, and her power to control things with the yes or the no. It could be something like that. I don't necessarily see infidelity as far as like something that's breaking the relationship. You know what I mean? Is there another woman here? Yeah, there's the Empress and the Queen of Cups. But I'm not showing that as being something that was necessary to even sneak around. They had issues beyond things like cheating. You know what I mean? I feel like neither one of them wanted to talk about or face how bad things actually were in their relationship. And maybe that could have caused him to question, well, what are we even married for? You know what I mean? Because for her, she didn't either one of them didn't want to go into it. You know what I mean? I also think that Todd may have been like an undercover. Like I said, there's something here. There's some criminal activity. I can't get past it. And to me, it's kind of giving me a vibe of like him stealing something. I don't know if he was stealing something from her on a business front, or if he was, like I said, involved in some type of Ponzi scheme or scandal. Definitely. But that Seven of Swords is there, and in a tarot that represents getting caught for doing something unethical. Now this is kind of in a future position, so I don't know if this has played out yet, But it could be him thinking about, going to the dark side of this if he's portrayed in a negative light in the media. Now, right now, he's trying to lean into the good guy thing because he was a primary nurturer, quote unquote, for the children. But at the same time, I feel like she needs to control the way the gossip is portrayed towards him, because he's willing to, he's willing to do what he has to do to not be portrayed as the bad guy. You know what I mean? And in social media, no matter what the situation is, they have a tendency to paint the man as a bad guy. So he's very conscientious about how he's perceived in the public, especially during this split. You know what I mean? I feel like if he did take something from her, he's going to get caught. If he did something that was unjustified and he fucked her over, he's going to get caught, or it's going to come out. Or if they did something like that together, or if he had some shit like that going on while he was married to her and it could cost her something, he's going to get caught. And again, this whole divorce could easily be a strategy for that. But it's also her feeling like he's sabotaging her. And it's also him feeling like, he's insecure and unstable and not giving a fuck. You know what I mean? And this is like the epitome of trying to bring somebody, kind of like, how they say, bring somebody down to your level. You know what I mean? So it makes you wonder, is he intentionally hurting her? Because he's been made to feel like a pawn, or somebody that's predatory towards her. And because of this perception, he's insecure about himself, but he's taking it out on her in passive aggressive ways. And again, that can include gaining control of the children. Like I said, he's a primary caregiver. We got the Knight of Cups here in reverse. Again, another card of drug or alcohol use. This is overindulgence. The Nine of Cups in reverse next with the Devil card. This is like this is alcoholism. This is alcoholism. You can't tell me otherwise. It has to be. It has to be. It has to be. If it's not, it's some type of drug. Like I said, it could be something that's making him angry. But I feel like there was also a sense of him, just being unfulfilled. But at the same time, his unfulfillment coming from a sense of him feeling deserving of much more or much higher, despite what he did or did not put in, or what lucky breaks he did or did not have. He wanted to be praised. He wanted to be that. He wanted to be her, the star. And I'm not even one to portray that in a man, but yeah, this is somebody who wanted the praise or the glory. Maybe it was like a sense of him thinking way too highly of himself, and just her presence humbling him. And so him doing things that could bring dirt upon her name, or doing things that could bring her down a peg. Like I said, engaging in criminal activities to make money that he don't have to do. But then when she asks him to stop, or says we don't need that, he says, oh, well, you ain't giving it to me. That type of manipulation. So I got to do what I got to do. Stuff like that. But doing things that are only to his advantage, or only to gratify him, thinking about the moment, being temporary, not thinking about the long haul. And then now you got all this shit catching up to us. Like I said, I think that part of this divorce is a business decision. Can we support? Can we co-parent? Yeah. But this could be their issues, but I'm not saying that it necessarily broke them up, because that Devil card is here in reverse. And unfortunately, the Devil card can mean two things. It could mean that you are finally breaking free for somebody, or in reverse, it can mean that y'all are even closer and more bonded to each other. And with the Ace of Cups and the crowning energy with the Devil card in reverse, I could almost say that y'all are actually really together and actually strengthening your bond during this divorce, if you will. Actually able to heal some things and get closer to each other, because maybe she feels like she's reduced the risk, Because there, like I said, there and earlier in the spread with that moon card in reverse, there was some stress and confusion, and that could have been causing her lady problems. Like I said, PCOS, whatever that shit is, bleeding, cysts. What do they call those things that are in your womb? Fibroids, stuff like that. But those sometimes can be like stress-induced inconveniences. You know what I mean? Where it's not fatal, but it's an inconvenience. Yeah. So it's possible that they're bonded even more so through these things that they're going through, but only now because she's finally separated herself from this other shit that he has going on. You know what I mean? Everything is going to be exposed. 7 of Cups, 7 of Swords in reverse, 9 of Cups in reverse, Moon card in reverse. It's going to be exposed. It's going to be exposed for sure. But that gives me, I don't know, that gives me a weird feeling when it comes to Todd, because he's not going to respond well to quote unquote being exposed. He's not the take it on the chin type, because like I said, he's very conscientious about his image. Even though this looks like something he went and got into all on his lonesome. So who you taking with you? You know what I mean? I feel like that 4 of Wands is there in reverse, just representing the transfer from home, hearth, marriage to, changing. But I still feel like, for the most part, there's a lot of prosperity and there's a lot of peace between them. The emotions are volatile, but their home life or property, none of that has been jeopardized as of right now. You know what I mean? I feel again this 4 of Wands represents neglect on the part of Kandi in exchange for things having to do with her money and her career. And again, him not really understanding why the need for more is more important than the family. You know what I mean? But her also not being a woman who resonates with the traditional motherhood role. I don't think that's her thing. You know what I mean? This 4 of Wands in reverse represents her neglecting her family. And the Empress card in reverse also represents neglecting your family in favor of things like career and money. Like I said, so that's a very big point of contention. And the lesson with that 4 of Wands in reverse is like saying that you need to appreciate more of what you have at home, otherwise you may look up and it may not be there for you anymore. You know what I mean? So in other words, the flip side of this reading is that Todd increasingly felt neglected by her in her womanly or motherly duties. Now, could she come in every now and again and be a freak and it seem like you're indulging him as a husband and being a great wife? It could seem like that, but it's not enough to take over what he notices about you as far as taking care of the kids and as far as what you're prioritizing. And like I said, she just happened to be coming into a time in her life where she was buying into more of the feminism type of thing as a woman. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm seeing. Reading is closing out with the Page of Wands in reverse, and I feel like this just represents the fragility of the whole situation. I feel like it represents them, I don't want to say not being as solid or as tight as they thought they were, because I don't want to take away from their relationship like that, but this represents like y'all not having had that stable ground. You know what I mean? And maybe overestimating your ability to be a husband or to be a wife to each other, and that being something that was, not exactly what you wanted, but not knowing what it was about going in. You know what I mean? And now that you see what it's about, it's like, I don't really like it like this. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's what I'm showing for Kandi and Todd. Please sound off in the comments. Let me know what you guys think of this reading. Does it resonate? Does it sound accurate to you guys? I'm not sure about all of the intricacies of their relationship, but I was kind of rooting for them a little bit. Of course, I know, the more popular headlines about them, but I don't really know them as a couple. But they're Kandi and Todd. Like, break up for what? Nobody wants either one of you. Well, Kandi, she might be a closeted lesbian because I heard she had a wife or a girlfriend on the side. But listen, it's a lot of lesbianism going on in the feminist movement. She could have got turned out. I don't know. But in any event, listen, Todd got his own shit going on too. So, hey, I don't know. But anyways, that's what I got. You guys smash that like button for me, please. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Check me out on the Inner Alchemist at Etsy. Get your spiritual healing, self-love spells, okay? Because if we casting spells, we doing it for ourselves. We doing it for the betterment of who we are. We're not worried about nobody else, okay? We blocking and resisting and rebuking demons, and we worried about what it is that we came to get out of this life. And I'm here to help you with that at the Inner Alchemist. Make sure that your notification bell's on so that you know when I drop my last video. And guess what? That's all I got. So, peace.